folks. My name is Mo Amir, and this is VANCOLOUR, British Columbia's bona fide culture and politics TV talk show right here on Check and Check Plus. We're also on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Tonight, after the high-profile incident of harassment towards Canada's Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland, are we ready to have a real conversation about the abuse directed towards women in politics and media? BC's Minister of Finance, Selina Robinson, will join us to discuss. But first, let's kick things off with a very special guest. His campaign, Alberta is Calling, is encouraging British Columbians to move to Wild Rose Country. He is the Premier of Alberta. He is Premier Jason Kenney. Premier Kenney, thanks so much for joining us tonight.
Great to be here, Mo. Thanks for the invite.
So, Premier Kenney, my cousin, fresh out of university, just moved to Calgary last week, and he says that you, Premier Kenney, convinced him to do so. So let's hear it. What is your elevator pitch? Why should British Columbians leave the best province in the country for Alberta?
Well, I'm glad the message is getting heard. First of all, I love BC. Let's be clear about that. We're not trashing BC. Both of my parents, all four of my grandparents, born in British Columbia. But I'm sorry, you're the second best province because, people these days, 40-year high inflation, the cost of living is more important to people than ever, especially the cost of housing. Here in Alberta, we have the strongest economy in the country. For at least 3-4 decades, we've had the highest incomes, the highest average family income. We have the highest after-tax incomes because we have the lowest taxes. Unlike BC, we don't have a sales tax, we don't have a land transfer tax, we don't have a payroll tax, we don't have a capital tax. We have lower personal income taxes and lower business taxes. But we also have, the youngest population in the country, the best educated in terms of post-secondary degrees and diplomas, particularly in STEM disciplines. But perhaps the biggest deal is the cost of living and the cost of housing, especially. I know that numbers have been moving lately in the GVR, the Greater Vancouver region. There's been some decline, but I still think an average detached house in the GVR is in and around 1.2 million. In Calgary, it's about 400,000. In Edmonton, it's about 350,000 for equal quality housing. And much closer to the core, so much shorter commutes, which means more time with your family. And by the way, cost of energy is lower, the cost of electricity, the cost of just about everything, food. So all in all, we've done the math on this. You take a $125,000 a year income earner in Vancouver, move them to Calgary, and over 10 years, based on the tax, cost of living, and housing differential, they are, we estimate, $400,000 better off. That's a life-changing fact.
Wow, I can already feel the light bulbs going off for some of the viewers. But I think some people have a fear of the stability of Alberta's economy. If oil and gas prices were to plummet, their great job in Calgary or Edmonton might not exist anymore. Their mortgage might be underwater, and ultimately they might have to uproot again. So what do you say to folks who worry about that?
Yeah, it's a reasonable concern because you're right. We do have an economy heavily connected to commodities. Frankly, outside the Lower Mainland, that's true of British Columbia. Now, having said that, our economy is becoming a heck of a lot more diversified. 35 years ago, nearly a third of Alberta's economy was oil and gas. That's now down to about 18-19% is oil and gas, and it continues to decline, even though the industry is doing very well right now. It's getting smaller as a share of the overall economy because other sectors are growing more quickly. And what's really driven that diversification, the number one factor, has been population growth. Because for most of the past 40 years, we have been the fastest growing province in the country, often tied with BC. You get a lot of our retirees, but we bring in a lot of workers from Eastern and Central Canada, and of course, newcomers from abroad. So right now, for example, Edmonton, I'm told by a tech magazine, has the fastest growing high-tech sector in North America. Our film and television industry is exploding. I mean, we've gone from $100 million to nearly $1 billion in value of productions. Crews are moving here from BC because of the work. we have whole new industries developing around hydrogen and low emitting petrochemicals, for example. Lots of new manufacturing. The aviation sector is taking off, and a lot more. So, I mean, I'll give you one example. Canfor, a Vancouver-based lumber company, closed 3 mills in British Columbia last year, but they bought 3 mills in Alberta. So we think a lot of momentum towards us. And finally, I would say, and this is not to trash BC, but yeah, we are susceptible to swings in commodity prices, but you all are very susceptible to swings in real estate prices. In the Lower Mainland, you've got a real estate driven economy. I don't think that's durable in the long run either.
So has BC Premier John Horgan talked to you about this campaign? I mean, we have a labor shortage here in BC in basically every industry. I feel like he can't be thrilled that you're out there, telling British Columbians to move to your part of the country.
We haven't talked about the campaign per se. By the way, I'll say that Premier Horgan and I have a very good relationship. We come from different ends of the political spectrum in Canada, but we both believe in civility and working together for the common good. And we have found a whole lot more to agree on than to disagree on. I think he and I both understand that Alberta and BC, our economies are so closely linked. Our people are so closely linked. As you know, like your brother, we've got families on both sides of the border, businesses that go back and forth, workers in BC, people who live in BC, but fly up north to the Alberta oil sands. And I know, there's so much back and forth. I don't think we take this with any kind of anything but friendly competition. And let me just say this. I think one of the advantages of a federation is that the provinces can act, there can be a kind of positive competition to get better outcomes. And if there's one province, in our case, that's a lower cost of living, I think that's a positive.
Premier Kenney, really quick, if you want to sweeten the deal for Vancouverites, you should throw in some free yoga or maybe like a welcome case of kombucha, some Berta Booch. Have you thought about that?
You probably won't believe this, but I was just drinking kombucha. So, and I've got matcha tea here in my labor union mug. So, there's something for everybody in Alberta, and that's the great thing. I'll share with you, like, for example, did you know that people outside of the province don't understand how diverse we are? The first Indigenous Canadian elected to Parliament was an Albertan. The first Muslim Canadian elected to Parliament was an Albertan. The first Hindu Canadian elected to Parliament was an Albertan. The first woman elected in Canada, Louise McKinney, an Albertan. We were the first province, I believe, to extend the franchise to women way back in the teens, in the progressive era. This is a province that there's a lot of the negative stereotypes just aren't true. And you move to Calgary was just given, according to the Economist Intelligencer Unit, the rating as the highest quality of life in North America, the third highest in the world. So Vancouver, eat your heart out.
Well, hey, I don't want to lose any more family and friends to your campaign, but I'll admit that you make a very compelling case. Thank you so much for your time tonight, Premier.
Thanks for having an open mind, Mo, and you're welcome to come and visit and to stay.
I might have to. Folks, that was the Premier of Alberta, Jason Kenney, telling you about the opportunities in his province. For more with Premier Kenney, find This is VANCOLOUR wherever you listen to your podcasts, as we're going to record some overtime to talk about our Premier, BC Premier John Horgan. But stick around, because after some business, let's talk about the rising toxicity that is endured by Canadian women in politics. BC Finance Minister Selina Robinson is up next. I'm Mo Amir. This is VANCOLOUR.